During Kibaki's funeral, the current president, who was then the deputy president, William Samoei Arap Ruto, said that Kibaki is the best president Kenya ever had at that time. I dare say that even right now, Kibaki is the best president Kenya ever had. I am proud that I'm among those people who not only discovered that, but it ended up in me losing my job simply by stating at that time that if Kenya would make, the actual wording was, if Kenya made a mistake of electing Kibaki, developments would come so much that they would be surprised that it is happening in Kenya. I lost my job. Kenya gained by the lot of development that was there during Kibaki's time. Many a times we ask ourselves, supposing Kibaki would have been elected in 1992 with his great plans, that is younger, and supposing Kibaki was elected without the accident that he had in Machakos. And lastly, supposing Kibaki would not have been harassed by something that is called MOU. And right now, plus the 2007, and right now we are saying that Kibaki's time was the best. If he would have been elected in 1992, if he would not have, that is when he's young, if he would not have had an accident, and if the political leaders then were mindful of the MOU that they had signed for them to get positions, for them to gain, but not for the ordinary person to gain. And of course, the 2007. If everything had worked the way some of us had said, and Kibaki would have been elected in 1992, Kenya would be very far. I want to say this, that one time Kibaki was saying, and I think that thing is still relevant today. You find we are talking a lot about foreign debts. We have even reached a stage where we are talking of internal debts. We are being told that the government is heavily borrowing, both internally and externally. But there's a time Kibaki asked a question, which we should ask ourselves today. There are two questions in one. One question that Kibaki used to ask was that we talk of borrowing money from other countries. Don't you think that we are borrowing the taxes of those people? Don't you think we are borrowing the taxes of those people? Not only tax, these people are supposed to develop themselves in one way or another. But they cannot develop themselves because part of the money, they have to give it to us. But if things goes the way that way, it can reach a stage where we can borrow a lot of money that another country can just survive on our interest. Let's say that country needs $1 billion in a year. Then other countries have heavily borrowed from it, such that they only get the interest of the same amount from each and every country that has borrowed. They don't even collect tax, they just collect the interest throughout. There's another thing, the second part I wanted to say, that Kibaki said, why can't we reach such a stage that neighboring countries around us can now, instead of us going to other countries to borrow, why can't we be in such a place that neighboring countries, at least countries in Africa, can come and borrow the money from us? After all, if you hear that we have borrowed money from America, from Britain, from France, from Germany, we are borrowing money, we are borrowing taxes that had been given out by the people of that country. Why don't we get our own taxes so that other countries come and borrow from us? And that is why you hear the Kenya Revenue Authority saying that kulipa ushuru ni kujitegemea. Plus, still on KRA, says that if you don't pay taxes, not only are you given conditions to pay at interest, but we have cases even in Kenya. If those who are old enough remember, Mwai used to say, we are being given tough conditions, yet it is money that we will repay later. So there is no question of you repaying the money. There is no question of even you repaying the interest. But there is the question of the one who pays the piper calls the tune, isn't it? So that is that. Why don't we turn it such a way that other countries now borrow from us and we give them conditions? Allow me. There are so many things because the story out there is that Ruto is killing all the projects or most of the projects that Kibaki started. That is the story out there. But allow me to concentrate today on education only. There are very many things to be discussed, but allow me just to discuss about education. Uh, I want to holistically make assessment of funds being lowered at all education level, which are primary schools, junior schools, senior schools, and even health. We can only understand if we address the issues affecting everyone at every level. Putting blame or even explanation in a very balanced way. First, we have to agree that the number of our schools and or the number of children in schools have increased. Now that increase, I'm not trying to say that 1968 we had 500,000 students, 1978 we have 1 million, 19 apart from special needs kids, the number of school going students not in schools per 100 is very low, almost zero. What I mean, I don't mean that we should start saying that the number of students in schools in 1968 was 500,000. 1978, let's say 2 million. 1988, 5 million. No. Increase, I mean, for every 100 school going age kids, today we have almost zero children who stay at home. We can say, for example, I don't have the figures. We can easily say that in 1968, 20% of school going kids would be in school. But right now we could say it is 98%. Of every 100 school-going kids, apart from the special needs kids, ordinary kids, almost all go to school, or it is 97, 98, or 99%. This added to the number of schools built by CDF in two ways. CDF has built additional classes per school. The same CDF has constructed brand new schools. This one has expanded the number of students, or it makes it that the Ministry of Education requires more budget. Your MP just builds modern schools, laboratories, halls, and everything. It is up to the government to finance whatever is required there henceforth. The other problem is to do with the tax. During Kibaki's time, Kenyans felt that if they didn't pay tax, the country would not go far. I mean, what I'm trying to say here is that during Kibaki's time, Kenyans felt that it was their duty. They felt guilty if they did not pay taxation. Today, we have reverted back to the pre-Kibaki era, where taxation is haphazard and you only pay taxes. That spirit of you chasing the tax has died. It has been replaced with the tax chasing you. A few reasons come to mind. You may have good plans. You may use the government funds wisely. But if people doubt you, on the other hand, you may even have been stealing from the past, but people believe truly in you. They will pay taxes very quickly. So this thing has got to do with you convincing the taxpayer to pay. When government leaders, whom the other day had people's sympathy, wear clothes or watches more expensive than the value of land, yani, what I'm trying to say is that they wear clothes, or you find somebody with a watch that if you took the money that he bought the watch, you can buy land and tell the government, now construct a school here. Yes, the money could be theirs. I'm not even trying to say that they stole the money or anything. But the air of superiority, especially after realization that they will obviously come for the second term, affects taxation. I think that the question of more classes and more students accounts for more funds required. The more the money required on the primary and senior schools, that is, the more the money is required, especially on the primary, junior, and senior school. Now, let us look at the tertiary. We need a lot of money to be taken to primary school, junior school, and even senior school. That one needs money, that there's no question about it. But then, as we talk about that money, let us talk about, as we talk about money, let us talk about tertiary school. Let us talk about tertiary schools. Now, when we talk about tertiary schools, this is where the whole problems come. Human beings, I believe, are very understanding when dealt with in a transparent manner. If a human being suspects that you are cheating, they'll become very uncooperative. We have a lot of problems with our tertiary, and an open discussion is what is needed. I do believe we can double, even triple the budget, the taxes. Kenyans would not mind. But Kenyans don't want to pay taxes if they have no confidence in the way it is spent. Ruto tells Kenyans that he has come up with a formula to address university education, which is student-based. The impression given is that on average, students pay less. But in reality, an average student pays 4 times what he or she used to pay before the new system. Before we indulge in particulars, let me say this. Society pays fees for the poor families or poor students. That one is known. If tomorrow the government said that they will not pay a cent for university fees, every village would hold an Harambee for their needy students. But telling Kenyans that students from poor households will get full sponsorship not only bars students from getting Harambees, but also makes the few people think that the little that they will contribute will be eaten. After all, isn't the school fees being paid? What I'm trying to say here is, if you go publicly and tell people that students from poor families will get full sponsorship, that is overtly. But covertly you go and charge them 4 times. The students will find it hard to call an Harambee. Because those who would have attended the Harambee would say that why should we contribute the money and the government has paid the whole of your fees? The truth is, on an average, the students are now paying 4 times what they paid in the previous ways. Has it ever occurred to the president and his government that new students can get information as to how their senior siblings get? There are 2 ways or 3 ways. The kid who is in the university now under the new model may have siblings, friends, or even schoolmates doing the same degree that they are taking. They can compare what they are paying and what the others are doing. I think the president and the government did not think of that. I have a kiulizo. Supposing this thing about student-based is genuine, as we are being told, because it is not genuine. On an average, the students are paying 4 times what their previous colleagues used to get. So how is it student-based? How is it student-based if they are now paying more? But I have a kiulizo, which is it not unconstitutional to grade students based on their parents' financial status? Where will we go now? The student who paid from his or her pocket may end up feeling superior, isn't it? Imagine we get the same degree, but I paid 100% from my pocket because my parents could afford. And you paid nothing because you come from the slums. Don't you think I'll feel superior to you? When Kibaki said that pupils on all public primary school will not pay a cent, didn't he know that there were pupils from Katwekera and Runda? We do understand when the government said that education to secondary school is compulsory. Tertiary should not be compulsory. Universities had started their own income generating means that was called parallel degrees. Yes, there were issues on parallel degrees. There were issues. But then that is not the topic for now. But financially, they assisted the universities to pay some bills. They assisted the universities to pay for some bills. By small bills, I mean they would pay for water, they would pay for electricity, security, and grounds members. But the government took all the students, and the universities didn't have the parallel degree. You could say that students from C plus and above are qualified for university degrees, but students with B plane and above would be fully funded. What do I mean? If you have a C plus and you feel you want to get a degree, you can go to the university, but you pay for your tuition. This way, those of C plus would fully finance themselves. Funds that would have been used by them would have been added on B play and more. Yes, parallel being inferior in grades and having mostly studied in the evening, their rate of passing was higher than the normal one. Because the universities knew who buttered their slices, and also they encouraged the parallel, since this would finance the universities. Since this would finance the universities, as I've said. Another thing that the government should address is the issue of its remittance to the universities. A student is supposed to pay, if my figures are right, 30%. The government is supposed to pay 70% in form of scholarship, in form of loans, in form of very many ways. But have you ever checked? Have you ever checked any university and found the last time the updating that the government, the Ministry of Education has paid? You'll be shocked. You'll find that on average, it is 2 years back. So what happens? The university forces the students to pay because classrooms need electricity. They have to have people to come and cut grass and so on. So that is why students are even chased from the universities, because the universities can't pay. If the government would have been paying its part, the students would be allowed to study all the period, and then before the student is given the certificate, he or she can look for a kibarua, manual jobs here and there, and then pay the university. But nowadays, the university cannot do that because they cannot tell the grass cutter to wait until the student has graduated, has completed the university to get that money. So if the government would have kept it, the Ministry of Education would have kept it aside and paid, if the Ministry of Education would have kept it aside and paid their share, the 70%, we would not be here. The other problem is to do with the opening of the universities. Even, okay, the constitution, the framers of constitution came up and said each county must have a university. With all due respect, does Lamu need a university? Okay, all counties are equal. All counties are equal. But sometimes when we hide under lies that, oh, you see, if you talk this way, you are talking tribal or anything. Does Lamu really need a university? What is the name of this other Kisii county? Nyamira. Does Nyamira need a university? When people are trying to look at a way when we can go around this constitutional requirement that each county has a university, where people are saying that let us now rationalize the universities we have and do whatever. The president went to Kisii, and while bypassing Nyamira, he was asking them to show him a place where Nyamira University would be started. People who have talked about Moi University, there are very many problems that are there in Moi University, but one of the problems that has bedeviled in Moi University is that a lot of universities were brought up by Moi University at a great expense to Moi University. If Moi University, Moi University was never cloned from any university. Actually, if there is any university in Kenya I have to declare my my interest here. I used to work for Moi University. I was seconded to Chepkoilel campus for some time. Let me just say that. But if we look at all the universities in Kenya, each university has been cloned from another university. Nairobi University used to be Royal Technical College. It was cloned out of University of East Africa, which was Makerere and Dar es Salaam. Actually, the university was Makerere, but it used to be called the University of East Africa. Then they brought in campuses in Dar es Salaam and Nairobi, and the rest, as they say, is history. So if you look at every public university, it has been cloned from another university. Moi started from tens. But even after Moi University developed, what happened? Even after Moi University developed, what happened was that many universities were cloned from it at a very expensive. If Moi University would not have been used to clone other universities, many of its problem would not be there today. So that is what I'm trying to say. So I would say that the government should be in the forefront of stopping academic institution, or that one I'd said the government should stop people from getting their certificates after graduation. You see, this one usually happens in secondary school. Secondary schools used to allow students to study so that when they have completed their school, they can now look for certificates. But when they do that, the government has stopped the institutions from keeping the certificates until the students complete. Now, what the schools do, they make sure that before you sit for your final exam, you have completed your school payment. What does that mean? It means that the last part of your education, where you are supposed to spend a lot of time concentrating on your final exam, you are out there being chased to look for school fees. We say when you identify a problem, then you have solved it. We need to identify the real issues before addressing them. One thing I had forgotten is if William Samoei Ruto can stop being the chief cabinet secretary and allow his ministers freedom to do his manifesto. You remember during Kibaki's time, ministers used to tell him that such and such a promises we made during elections were hard to implement. And could we find a way of going around it? And Kibaki would say, that if you are unable to run that ministry, can't you, I mean, if you find you can't implement what we promised to Kenyan, then it is hard to retain you in that ministry. That is why we had, you can look at the things they were going, uh, every minister, the minister for roads was busy making roads, the minister for education. Actually, what Kibaki did was that he followed the saying. There is a saying that says, if you can motivate others to be better versions of themselves, then you are a leader. We say Kibaki did this, Kibaki did that. Kibaki did not do this, Kibaki did not do that. He empowered the ministers to be fully in charge of their ministries. Those who were there, remember, we used to have roadside declaration. Each in the evening, you'd find every minister saying, "From today onwards, this and this is not going to happen. From today onwards, this and this is not going to happen." Some would even sidestep from their core value. I remember one time, Raila, being the minister for roads, said that he understands that some people in the security services were running private security companies. He was not supposed to say that because he was not the minister for internal security. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is that when Kibaki's first term, when he took over, every minister would go in every direction, giving direction here and there. What I would request the president also to give the ministers power to do what they want to do. You can see this thing about shoot to kill. Yes, the youths had annoyed Ruto, but I think I've no access to Ruto himself, so I don't even have access to his mind. But I think when the kids started drawing Ruto in her coffee, that is where they crossed the line, and Ruto has never recovered from that time. So when Murkomen was saying shoot to kill, he had discussed with Ruto, and when he said it, he even had to step aside a bit. He had to step aside a bit until when Ruto said piga risasi mguu and whatever, and then he came back. He even went up to entering into the operational capacities of the ministry by even purporting to give out an order, what do you call, an executive order number 1 of 2025. What I mean is that if you want the work to be done, give the ministers their works and let them do the work they do. Of course, Kindiki has gone a step further, but you can see how Kindiki was running the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Can you compare it with Murkomen? And remember, both are lawyers and both are university lecturers. So you find that that is how it is. The only thing we can do is that we have to be open and we have to look at things, and we have to address issues holistically. One thing that I'm noticing about the president is that he talks one thing and does the opposite. For example, what is so wrong about telling students that the universities, the government has not paid the university for so much and the university has to go on and you have to pay 4 times what you're paying? Why should you tell students that they are going to pay a quarter of what they used to pay, while in real sense they are paying for 4 times that? As I've said, and I'm finishing as I'm running out of topic, is that human beings, and Kenyans especially, are very responsible people. If you are just to tell them, no, this is what we think, we can't work out this way. No, we cannot we are not a welfare state. We don't have a lot of oil to give students free universities. People have to go to, people will agree with you and people will cooperate. That's all for today. Thank you.